What's up, guys? You're watching Milltown Productions, and my name is Jace.
I'm Brandon.
Jose. No, it's Jason.
There we go.
I almost fooled you again.
Most of these things are true, man.
Today we are farmers. Not really,
Bum,
but
bum, 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 bum.
we are watching not what we normally watch. We haven't watched one of these in a while.
Oh, man.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
We haven't
LOL
watched one of these
video.
since season 2.
Season 2.
Yep.
We have, yeah,
Because we watched the first one after season 2.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we're a season behind. We're 2 seasons behind on it right now, but we're about to catch up really quickly
Yeah.
on the history and lore.
Oh, this is an hour.
Yeah, blam.
Wait, but he wouldn't need to, right? Because it's just for him.
I know, but he fucked me up with my finger thing.
He fucked me up with my fingers.
He fucked me with his fingers. I
My
mean,
brother Baratheon had raised the banners of Storm's
God.
we
End,
got
our
Stannis.
ancestral
Yeah.
castle,
Storm's End.
against the mad King Aerys. John Arryn of the
I thought that said
Vale and Eddard
Weastwood.
Stark of the North stood with him.
Weast.
The hospitality of the Riverlands would join. But their
Nice.
lands were far from ours.
Wait,
and separated
whose
by
sigil was the very
combined
left?
Strength of the West, the Reach,
Uh,
and King's Landing
Oh shit!
itself.
Who has the fucking
Even
bird?
Robert's own lords
wasn't
were
that
against
Tully?
it.
No,
It
there's
was
No.
the hardest choice I've ever made. My brother or my king.
I hope they say
That was a
Right.
raven, right? Or
Aerys ruled by
I don't know.
right of all the laws in Westeros. Everyone knew the price of defiance, but there are
Is it-
deeper, older laws. The younger brother bows before the elder. I followed Robert. Early in the war, Mace Tyrell's indecisive victory at Ashford cut Robert off from Storm's End. Instead of pursuing Robert and risking his record, Mace Tyrell turned east and laid
Record.
siege to our home. His vast army and navy encircled us and prevented any resupply by land or sea. If a wagon tried to reach us, it was burnt. If a ship tried to land, it was sunk. We were locked in Storm's End to starve, but Robert commanded me to hold the castle no matter the cost. He could ill afford to lose his ancient seat, which had never fallen. While Robert smashed Rhaegar on the Trident, my
Oh.
men ate the dogs, because the horses had already been devoured.
damn.
While the Lannisters sacked King's Landing, we ate the rats. If the smuggler Davos had not slipped through the Tyrell blockade with his onions, we'd have eaten our own dead. But I held the castle
The Onion
until
Knight.
Lord Eddard remembered us and marched to lift the siege. The Tyrells didn't even put up a fight. And Robert threw a feast to celebrate Lord Eddard's victory.
Lord Eddard.
I was sent
Eddard.
to the Royal Island stronghold of Dragonstone to deal with Viserys and Daenerys, the last surviving Targaryen
Weird that the water looks like
children.
lava.
Before I arrived,
The water's
however,
lava.
Magma.
they escaped across the narrow sea.
Man, by the time he
Robert
got
was
there,
furious.
so they were at
He
Dragonstone.
stripped
Oh
me
yeah,
of
okay.
Yeah.
Storm's End
Wow.
and gave it to that prancing fool Renly, my younger brother.
Huh.
I could keep Dragonstone. Now Robert is dead, and a bastard pretender soils my throne while the realm fills with schemers and traitors. But the rightful king is coming for them all, and I will not stop until I have scoured this land clean of abomination. The Baratheons say, ours is the fury. I will show them. Fury burns.
Ooh. Okay.
Fury burns, man.
Davos.
Just. Yeah, continue.
Oh, I was just
In
excited
King's
because we're about to
Landing,
get Davos's
if you leave the
perspective.
Red Keep and aren't careful, you may find yourself in Flea Bottom.
Ooh, don't want to
In
find
such
yourself
a
in a flea's
cesspool.
bottom, bro.
Let House Seaworth have its glorious start. I got out as soon as I could, finding work on a smuggler's ship. Soon, every port on the narrow sea had a bounty on me, which they would collect if I didn't pay a percentage to the right people or pick the right tides. You know how to tell a good smuggler? When you talk to one, there's a head that talks back. I was very good. Davos of Flea Bottom had run with orphans and beggars, but Davos the smuggler was received by merchants and lords when nobody would catch them. Oddly, the only honest work came from pirates like the notorious bloodthirsty Salador Sam. an old
He didn't
friend.
seem very bloodthirsty.
No,
All
because
he
they
ever
were
wanted
friends,
was
I
someone
guess.
to buy his
So he
cargo
was...
quickly before the tide left, and sell it without telling where I got it. In time, I saved enough to buy a small plot of land and found a woman who was kind enough to overlook my trade.
Huh.
She gave me a son, Mathos. And we dreamt of the trader's circle round the Jade Sea, just one trip, and I could settle us and our family for life. Then some storm lord revolted against the Iron Throne. Wars are not as good for smugglers as you'd think. Every harbour fills with guards and inspectors, and the seas filled with blockades and pirates paid by each side to prey on the other. Though I had no love for the Mad King, I'd grown up around the power of King's Landing. I figured this Robert Baratheon would end the same as the other rebel lords, burnt to ash.
Burnt to
didn't.
ash.
The North, the Riverlands, and the Vale joined him. And in the taverns, people drank to Robert's health openly. Brave fools, I thought. But I had a family who'd be left in the cold if I lost my head. When Mace Tyrell marched on Robert's home of Storm's End, I spied the end of the rebellion. The castle was garrisoned by Robert's younger brother Stannis and a small guard, and would not hold out for long. When it fell, Robert would be homeless, and his support would bleed away. This I knew from experience. Months later, Stannis was still holding the castle. Nobody cared. But on voyages, I had seen what famine does, and I thought of all those men in Storm's End who would die unmourned and forgotten.
Ooh,
No better than flea bottom orphans.
no
I told
better.
my wife and myself that I'd get a high price for the onions and salt beef. In truth, I knew I'd be captured by the Tyrell galleys or drowned, but I was too stubborn. Later that night, in the dark, in a tiny boat with a black sail, I cursed myself and the moonlight as I waited for the tide to turn. When it did, the wind beat the sail so hard I ripped it down, fearing the Tyrell ships would hear. Luckily, they'd grown lax. With muffled oars alone, I steered my cargo through the treacherous currents and snarls of rock that gave Shipbreaker Bay its name.
Huh.
The waves finally carried me, soaked and near blind from sea water, through the mouth of the cavern beneath the castle. Then, Stannis Baratheon arrived. The siege had left him gaunt, but not weak, never weak. He greeted me and accepted my onions with cool courtesy, betraying no emotion, even as all wept. He doled out the food to his wife and each of his men before he ate himself, a portion no larger than any other.
Huh.
When he finally thanked me, I could see his mind had already returned to the castle's defense. His duty. After Ares fell and Lord Stark lifted the siege, Stannis summoned me. For my salvation at Storm's End, I was to be granted a knighthood, a keep of my own, and my son taken into Stannis's personal service. Davos of Flea Bottom had become Sir Davos of House Seaworth, and his son would serve the king's own brother. But for my previous crimes as a smuggler, I was to have the fingertips of one hand taken off above the highest joint. Stannis held that I had flouted the laws of the land for years, and a good act does not wash out the bad. In one fell swoop, or 5, Stannis gave my son a future and my family a name that I could never have imagined, nor earned on my own. I still keep the finger bones in a bag around my neck, to remind me what I was and what I owed to Stannis. For during my many years as a smuggler, I visited many ports, taverns, and back alleys, and saw many things in this world, but never justice. Until Stannis.
Okay.
That's a weird fucking thought. Having one of your bones, like holding one of your bones.
Yeah.
Some great houses call us upstarts.
Margaret Tyrell.
But the truth is that while the Starks and Lannisters fell to the Targaryens in defeat,
SpongeBob?
House Tyrell rose. For
Rose,
thousands of
wow.
years, our family served as loyal stewards to the kings of the Reach, until the last of their line unwisely burned to death, resisting the Targaryen invaders. To save the Reach from a similar fate, we yielded the castle of Highgarden to Aegon and his sisters. In gratitude, the Targaryens gave House Tyrell dominion over the Reach, and we became lords of the castle in which, for generations, we had served. Under the Targaryen dynasty, Westeros prospered. Gone were the petty wars of 7 kingdoms and the endless thirst for minor glories that drove them. The Westerlands enriched the realm. The North guarded it. And the Reach and Riverlands fed it. This harmony is what Robert Baratheon shattered with his rebellion against Aerys Targaryen. When the call to arms came, though, we did not want to answer. The Reach is a gentle land, and honestly, the Mad King was not much loved. But we owed peace and status to his family. My father, Mace Tyrell, called his banners and marched north to battle the rogue Stormlord Robert, who had already defeated 3 forces in a single day. And
Damn.
at Ashford, my father won. Some chasing my father for not pursuing Robert after the battle. We had cut him off from the Stormlands, the seat of his power, and he had fled north, within easy grasp of Lord Tywin Lannister, the Hand of Aerys, for 20 years. My father moved instead to lay siege to Robert's ancestral stronghold of Storm's End. The rose would strangle the stag as the lion pounced. So we waited. But the lion slumbered, and Robert slipped past the king's forces to join Ned Stark. We could have lifted the siege and deployed our armies north to aid the crown. We could have stormed the walls of the castle and made Robert homeless. But we had ample supplies, control of land and sea, and most of all, patience. Our siege would succeed, eventually,
Eventually.
at little cost of life to us. If Robert prolonged the war with minor victories, our capture of Storm's End would hasten his downfall. And if Robert won the war, well, it would not do for him to find us in his halls with the bodies of his brother Stannis and his sworn men. When the lion finally showed his colors and purged King's Landing, we knew our cause was lost. My father chose the peaceful route and bent the knee to Robert, who heartily pardoned us. Strange, considering how we'd beaten him and starved his brother to the brink of death. We were to keep our lands, castle, and title, but we knew that we would never be welcome at court. It didn't matter. The
seems
Reach
pretty
was
fucking
still the
fair
most
to me.
fertile
Yeah.
of the 7 kingdoms, and under our hand. Every
Generous
flower,
even.
Yeah.
even the rose, needs pruning.
Like, yeah,
Then
you're
it
not welcome
grows
in
strong.
court, but I'm not gonna kill you.
Yeah.
You and your family can live.
And keep all of your shit.
Yeah, like, that's wild.
Catelyn.
Rebellion.
Family, duty, honor.
Honor.
Every Tully child learns our words. But I was a woman before I understood them. Years before, my father had taken to foster the son of a wartime friend, a minor lord on the Fingers. The boy had arrived at our castle as Peter Baelish. Due to his height and size, my brother soon named him.
I didn't know that.
When I came of age, Brandon Stark of Winterfell sought and won my hand. To my father, Brandon was heir to the north and a suitable match for a daughter of House Tully. To me, Brandon was wild and terrifying, never far from laughter or trouble.
Shit.
I loved him with all the fire of a first passion.
I loved you
Much
too,
I came
baby.
to realize, as Peter loved me. When Peter heard of my engagement, he challenged Brandon to a duel. Peter survived only because I begged Brandon not to kill him. I still thought of Peter as family. Now, I wish I had let him die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only days before my
Spared
wedding,
him
when
and
I
then
thought
friend-zoned
he'd
him.
happy forever, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen abducted Brandon's sister, Lyanna.
Evil man.
Hot-blooded as always, Brandon immediately rode for King's Landing to demand justice, which
Damn.
the Mad King
All the
Aerys
Starks were
Targaryen
like-
gave him. in his
That's
own
what all the Starks were like.
twisted
Yeah.
fashion. The day the Raven arrived with the news of my Brandon's death, I locked myself in a room and refused to eat for days. Until
myself in the
my
highest
father
tower.
reminded me of my duty. I was to marry Eddard, Brandon's younger brother. A man whom I had never met, though of
What?
whom none spoke ill, or spoke anything at all.
You were engaged to his brother and you never met him?
Our union would cement an alliance of the North, Vale, Stormlands, and Riverlands in rebellion against the Mad King. I was a Tully. I did my duty. We were married quickly, and were spared only one night before he had to return to the field. I spent the war by the windows waiting for a raven to hear if my son would grow up fatherless or at all. We knew the price of defeat. I scoured the kitchens and washing rooms for any and all gossip. Robert had won and crushed the Mad King. Robert had lost, but Jaime Lannister was now king. Robert had almost won, but the Mad King had become a dragon and burned King's Landing to ash. At night, I told myself the war would end soon and bring peace. Either victory or the grave. I was wrong. Robert won, and my husband avenged his brother and my love. But when he came home to me, he could not meet my eyes. I saw the reason by his side.
Jon
Many men
Snow.
have bastards, I know. And under the strain of war, any man, no matter how honorable, may forsake his vows for a night of warmth that he may never know again. But Ned Stark was not built like other men. His northern honor
They
would
only
not
had
let
one
him
night
sequester
together.
his
That's what I'm
shame
saying,
in
like-
some distant holdfast. He brought this boy, this
I'm gonna pause it after
Jon
hers for a
Snow.
second.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
home to raise with his true-born children. My children.
'Cause there's a lot to unpack
Yet even
here.
these bitter memories are sweet now. They are all I have left of my Ned. Our family is broken and scattered. And our son must wage a war for the pieces. We need to go home. The Starks are of the north, and, like the snows of winter when they come south, they melt away.
All right. So, man, like, literally, they got married, had a night together where they had to consummate the marriage, and then he left for war. She had Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Then he comes back with John.
Yeah. And
And then that's when they have to build their marriage, is while
Yeah.
she's struggling with John.
yeah. So my confusion there, I was listening as if it was her speaking during that time, but it's at the end
Of the season, like,
Yeah.
with her saying that. So it does make sense with her saying, but John isn't. I mean, but
Ned.
yeah, but Ned isn't like
He's not like
the
those other
men.
guys.
Because at first I was thinking you've only spent one night with him. How do you know? But no,
Yeah.
this is future
Catelyn.
Catelyn that's
Yeah.
saying this. So that makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
20-something years later. Well, not 20-something, but...
But, yeah.
That makes that whole situation a bit more complicated. Like,
Yeah.
But why?
So, Jon
Why
and
was
Robert
she
Village.
so salty about John then?
Well, I mean...
If she understands what happened, and if it happened when they only spent one night together, like it's different if like they had fallen deeply in love, and then he leaves and comes back with a kid. No, got married, had sex one time, one night, leaves for a year, comes back with a kid.
Well, I mean, it also like it's she got kind of fucked, like because she had the love of her life with Brandon Stark, and then
Yeah.
Right.
he dies, and then they're like, no, you kind of have to marry his brother, and then she's like, oh great, so now she's depressed. Then they get married, and he puts a kid in her and leaves. And no one's ever said anything bad about him, so she's like, well, all right, well, maybe he won't do anything to like fuck me over. Maybe he'll be a good husband. And then he comes back and he's like, by the way, I cheated on you while I was away at the war, and here's your kid. So.
And he was freaking out, or she was freaking out the whole time. Like, is he gonna die too, or is he gonna survive?
So she was just kind of so that was all just. I feel like she just didn't know how to process her own emotions, and she took it out on the one thing that she didn't see as her true family, which was John. Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you started dating someone tomorrow, and then she went and had sex with someone else,
Well, no,
you'd
I
probably
know.
be upset too.
No, I get that, and that's it's also like different situations, right? So like when she says it that way, I understand.
Yeah.
Like if a guy goes out in war, he's fighting in these wars, and then like I don't know.
Well,
'Cause like let's say if I dated a girl who was in the military and she was in combat situations, I wouldn't want her to do it. But like in that specific situation, I feel like I'd kind of understand.
Well, see, that's the thing is how she said.
Oh man.
I know it sounds weird. I know because I don't like cheating at all. But at the same time, it's like you could die.
Well, that's why I think she was saying here was like the now future Catelyn feels like she understands it more, whereas at that time she didn't even want to try to understand it or even think about it because she was too worried with her own feelings.
Yeah, because around that time she started realizing how she was just kind of a dick to Jon Snow his entire life.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, still, that's the job you sign up for, you know? Like, you choose to go off and go into combat and
Yeah.
stuff. So,
Well, no,
I mean...
not them at that time.
Well,
Like in today's age, yeah. Unless
yeah,
you're
that's what I'm
drafted.
saying.
Unless you're drafted, I was
well,
basically
Ned,
trying to justify.
well, I feel like Ned technically chose to because
Yeah.
he was just Rob's best friend.
And he...
And
like,
Rob
Rob
rebelled.
asked
He-
him to
he-
be...
He was a lord. You have to.
Well, but
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, he went off to be at Rob's side and to command
His armies
Rob's
and
army,
stuff.
but he didn't have to do that.
because Robert was actually just rebelling against the king.
Well,
Ned wasn't doing anything.
I would say he would have had to fight no matter what, but he got to choose which side
Why would he have to fight no matter what?
because all the lords fight.
Yeah, but this wasn't a war that, like, he would have... This was a rebellion. This wasn't, like, a war between...
No, I know, but if he would have stayed on the Mad King side, he would have fought for the Mad King. So they would they would have sent out had all the banner people come together.
No, because the whole time that Rob had his rebellion that he was going on, there were plenty of people that didn't fight, that were lords. You know what I'm saying?
well,
Like,
I don't know.
Yeah, because everyone was.
Frey never fought.
'cause people were
the Flayed
saying-
Man never fought.
People were saying they were going to stay off to the side to see what was actually going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's why only certain people were actually involved in it, like the Lannisters, and because even the Tyrells were like they got involved a little bit, but only in a certain capacity.
Yeah, as a support role more than anything. But
And they were making those decisions on their own, like with what they were doing, from what Marjorie was saying. Like,
yeah, and I think that might breed animosity with the king and stuff. But I don't think you're obligated to fight in the rebellion on either side. But I don't.
Yeah.
that's why if like the rebellion had failed, then the Mad King would have been like, "You didn't stand by my side. Now I'm gonna kill you."
Yeah.
Right.
And then
Yeah,
Robert was
but-
like,
Oh, what?
and then it was just like how Robert was like, "Oh, you actually fought against me, but I'm still gonna spare you," kind of deal.
Yeah.
Right.
But I do feel like if the king would have called for his bannermen, and if they didn't, they would have 100% been killed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ned at that point, I think Ned would have
Definitely
been
would
destined to rebel regardless because
Yeah.
even if he hadn't joined initially with Robert, if the Mad King had asked Ned to go and kill Robert, I don't think Ned could have.
Yeah.
Ned would have been like,
Well, because Robert was like family to him,
Yeah.
and their whole thing is family, then duty, then honor.
Mhm.
Like that's their. If that's their whole thing, man,
yeah.
then.
So I feel like he'd have been like,
Wait.
no.
Wait, is that the Tullys?
Tully.
That's
Yeah.
the Tullys, yeah.
Not Ned.
Yeah.
Well, the Stark says winter is coming,
Yeah, as winter is coming, yeah.
but I mean, he still held honor. Like,
Yeah, yeah. He's very
Yeah,
honorable.
well, and he held family like extremely high too. I think I made that prediction in season 1 that he would like do whatever for his family first and then honor. So I feel like, I guess he kind of lives by the Tullys' words, anyways. I think so.
well, 'cause,
which he did because he got his head cut off for
Yeah.
for his family
Yep.
instead of his honor.
Well,
Yep.
All right then. Who's next? The Greyjoy Rebellion.
Ah.
Robb Stark.
Dark wings.
This
Dark
is where
words.
Theon gets taken, basically,
I was
sent
only a
sent
boy
away.
when the Raven
Yep.
came to call my father, Lord Eddard Stark, to another war. Balon Greyjoy had raised the Iron Islands in revolt and burned the Lannister fleet at anchor. King Robert Baratheon again needed his old friend.
Good old Balon.
My mother Catelyn was not happy to lose her lord husband to Robert again. 6 years before, he had left her to avenge his father and brother against the Mad King. But now he had sons and daughters of his own, and, unspoken, another son who wasn't hers from the last time he went to war. My brother, Jon Snow. But she knew that in marrying my father, she had married the North. We hold our honor and duty as dear as our old gods. When the time came, my father marched south to restore peace and order to the realm. My father always told me the Iron Islands were a strange and dangerous place. Its people, the Ironborn, keep neither the old gods nor the Seven, and despise all honest toil. Their ancestors ravaged the western shores, raping and slaving and putting it to the torch, and their songs still ring through the halls of the Ironborn, while everywhere else they're whispered to wayward children at bedtime. Perhaps Lord Balon thought Westeros had not healed from the war against the Mad King, and was as fragmented and suspicious as the ancient kingdoms his forebears had terrorized. Robert's navy corrected him at Fair Isle when they smashed the Proud Iron Fleet. Robert and my father corrected him at Pike, his own castle, when they pulled down his towers and breached his walls. My father never liked to speak of his battles, but from other men I learned what transpired. Thoros of Myr was first through the breach with his flaming sword.
Oh,
Not
shit.
far behind him
Damn.
was Jorah Mormont of Bear Island, my father's bannerman who earned the knighthood he would later shame, and lords from every corner of the Seven Kingdoms.
See, it'd be
All
cool as
day,
shit to
through
actually see
every
this,
passage in the
like,
castle, they
actualized.
fought side by side. My
With the
father with
actors,
our
like-
ancestral sword Ice, and King Robert with his warhammer against a horde of axe-wielding Ironborn.
Dude.
In the end,
Wait, Robert
Storm.
actually went to
Balon
war?
bent
Yeah,
the knee.
Robert was in the battle, like, with it, the
King
warhammer,
Robert
just
generously allowed
Damn.
Lord Balon to retain his title and castle.
with the antlers, like.
The price
Yeah.
of peace was custom.
That's badass.
The only son of Balon's to survive
They need to
his
do a
foolish
show
rebellion would be taken
with
as
the
a
rebellions
hostage
back
against
in the day.
future
They really
treasons.
do.
Yeah, they do.
My father
was
even
such a
volunteered
badass
to
back in
foster
the
the
day.
boy himself. I suspect. To make
Triple H,
Theon
dog.
Greyjoy a different
Triple H
man
Thor.
than his
Yeah.
father, who would bring honor and duty to the Iron Islands when he returned as heir.
Sure he will.
So my mother's silent fear came true, and my father returned with another child. Theon ate with us, played with us, and fought
Huh.
with us.
2 times he returns with someone else's kid.
Once the
Yeah.
great bond between my father and Robert Baratheon united the realm against the Mad King and brought him to justice for his crimes. Now, another monster sits on the Iron Throne, and another debt of blood is owed my family. Theon is my murdered father's ward. I am my murdered father's son. Like my father and Robert, bound in blood, if not by blood, we are brothers.
For now.
Blood of my blood.
I hate it, man.
Yeah. Ooh,
I'm-
Theon's.
I wish we could have gotten, like, a cool, like.
When
buddy,
Aegon and
buddy,
his
like,
dragons
Theon,
beat Harren the
Robb,
Black and
like,
all his sons at Harrenhal, the days
and
when
just-
men feared the sight of our longships were over. Aegon would not permit
Over.
marauders and raiders in his 7 kingdoms. With Harren died our empire and the old way that forged it. But what is dead may never die. 6 years after Robert Baratheon won his crown, my father, Balon Greyjoy, sought to restore our ancient
Looks like a
rights.
uterus on the sails.
He declared the Iron Islands independent and himself its king, and sent the Iron Fleet in a daring
They
raid
have
on
the
Lannisport
Kraken.
where they burned the Lannister
Yeah,
ships at
good
anchor,
old Kraken.
making us unchallenged in the Sunset
What's the
Sea.
difference?
This was
Between
the
a uterus
seed
and a
of our
Kraken?
undoing. My eldest brother Roderick led a frontal assault on Seaguard, a town built to protect the mainland from us. After ferocious fighting beneath the city walls, he was slain by Lord Jason Mallister and his men defeated. By this time, Stannis Baratheon had brought Robert's fleet around Westeros. and
Nice.
Somehow managed to trap the Iron Fleet at Fair Isle, smashing it. Robert's victory was now all but assured, yet we made him bleed for each island. Stannis Baratheon captured Great Wick, the largest of the Iron Islands, and Ser Barristan Selmy himself subdued Old Wick. Robert and Lord Eddard Stark led the main assault against the island of Pike. They razed the town of Lordsport to the ground before Robert turned his full fury on our family's stronghold. When they breached the walls, the first through was Thoros of Myr with his ridiculous flaming sword, followed by every minor lord of Westeros hungry for glory. My other brother Maron was killed when the siege engines brought down a tower on his head.
Damn.
I was now my father's only living son, and heir to the Iron Islands. When my father saw his cause was lost, he wisely conceded defeat to Robert, who otherwise would have pulled down our castle stone by stone with us in it. As my father said to me then, no man has ever died from bending his knee. He who kneels may rise again, blade in hand. He who will not kneel stays dead, stiff legs and all. As it stands, Robert allowed my father to keep his lands and title as Lord of the Iron Islands, King of Salt and Rock, Son of the Sea Wind, Lord Reaper of Pike, for a price. His last son and heir shipped off to Winterfell as an honoured guest. I would eat at the Stark's table and play
He can
with
have
the
another.
Stark children. And if my father rebelled
Well,
again,
he did, but
Lord Eddard
not another
Stark
son.
would take his sword and cut off my head. It would be his duty.
I wonder what Theon's perspective would be now that he's being tortured.
Yeah. Same.
Though Robert had risked all our lives to win it, the Iron Throne bored him. He cared little for justice, and less for rule. If it weren't women or wineskin, he had no use for it. Without the stalwart Jon Arryn as Hand of the King, the challenge to Robert's crown would have come much earlier than it did. The Iron Islands have never lacked for treachery. They respect only strength, and honor is as foreign to them as the Seven. After 6 years, their ruler, Lord Balon Greyjoy, wagered that King Robert had not won the support of the great houses of Westeros, many of whom still named him usurper. Lord Balon declared the Iron Islands independent, and sent his Iron Fleet to Lannisport. Lord Tywin Lannister was careless, and the Ironborn caught and burnt his ships at anchor. Lord Balon and his reavers controlled the Sunset Sea. Robert then
Sunset
ordered me
Sea.
to succeed where his father-in-law, Lord Tywin, had failed. Beneath Robert's fury, I sensed relief. War he could understand. He would smash Lord Balon as he had Rhaegar. I raised Robert's fleet and sailed around Westeros to the Iron Islands. I set a trap for the Iron Fleet off Fair Isle. As sailors and warriors, the Ironborn are unparalleled. But they're not soldiers. They have no discipline, no strategy, no unity.
Yeah.
In a battle, each man fights only for his own glory. And their longships are built for lightning strikes and shore raids. When the captains rushed in, I smashed their longships with our larger war galleys. The strength of the Ironborn is in their ships. With the Iron Fleet broken, I had assured Robert's victory. He could now transport troops and siege weapons to invade the Iron Islands. And contrary to Balon's hopes,
See, Stannis was a
Robert had
badass
plenty
too.
of both.
Yeah. But like
I've
in the
never
background.
seen such
Yeah.
allegiance as Robert could inspire in war. Enemies who tried to kill him one day would be drinking with him the next under their own fallen banners. In rebelling against the Iron
he was
Throne,
Pippin.
Lord Balon
Yeah.
did more
Jordan.
than Robert ever could to cement his rule. When Robert came to the Iron Islands, he brought with him the full power of Westeros.
Saruman? No.
Sir
Sauron.
Barristan
Yeah, Sauron.
Selmy of the King's Guard led the assault on Old Wick, while I subdued Great Wick, the largest of the Iron Islands. But Robert saved the seat of House Greyjoy, Pike, for himself and Lord Eddard. Robert would later boast of the battle's bloodiness and how he could have torn down the island into the waves if Lord
Did you notice
Balon
that
hadn't
Ned
bent the knee.
cut a sword in half with ice
But if I'd
right
have
there?
led the assault,
Dude, Ice was
Balon's
such a
neck would
badass
have bent
sword. Like,
under his
Yeah,
sword.
and he didn't just cut
Because
off his
I
head.
do
He
not
cut off his
forget.
head at the like
I do
midpoint of the
not
mouth.
pardon. His time will come. All their times will come.
What the
That
hell
was weird.
That?
Yeah.
That, like,
Yeah. Y'all heard it only in the right ear?
it was
Mostly in the right.
Yeah.
House Tyrell trace our descent to Garth Greenhand, the
Not that-
Not if
legendary
y'all heard
first
that,
king of
sorry.
the Reach, who made the land bloom.
I didn't know they had big goth
But
bitches
so
in here.
too does every noble house around us.
What?
It seems dear ancestor
miss
Garth
something?
I heard like goth
planted as many
mainland.
flowers
Oh.
as he plucked. A king should have more consideration for his line, don't you think? For over 1,000
Flying fish.
years, the Greenhand
One
sons
fish.
and grandsons ruled the Reach as
Slytherin.
House Gardner. The offshoots of his daughters grew into vast and powerful houses in their own right, except for House Tyrell. We chose instead to serve our Gardner cousins faithfully as stewards, to manage their
Stewards.
stronghold of Highgarden and the daily affairs of the Reach. Our words are growing strong. And under our stewardship, the Reach
Yeah.
did just that. As did we. Until a blundering king almost cost us everything. Aegon Targaryen
That
had
was
landed
horrible.
in Westeros. King Mern allied us with the Rock to repel the upstart's army. One can only marvel that King Mern did not reconsider when he saw the living dragons against him. Perhaps he should have sought counsel from his trusted stewards before he set out. Then again, perhaps he did. At the Field of Fire, Aegon, and let us not forget, his sisters, burnt the combined armies of the Reach and Rock. King Mern paid for his misjudgment with his life and that of his ancient family. In a day, the Reach had lost its king, its ruling house, and most of its army. Thankfully for everyone, my ancestor, Harlan Tyrell, had better sense. Until the Maesters sorted out the intel among Mern's cousins, Harlan the Steward was acting Lord of Highgarden. To ensure peace and life in the Reach, he would yield the castle to Aegon. The other castles and families would then follow, as they had since the Dawn Age. Aegon had a continent to conquer, and the fertile Reach was too valuable to raise. He accepted Harlan's proposal and welcomed our lands into his kingdom. To show his gratitude, Aegon entitled Harlan to Highgarden, the castle his family had served for 1,000 years, and made House Tyrell his wardens of the south, choosing us over older, greater families in the Reach. Our house thus owed everything to the Targaryens. So is it any wonder we stayed true to King Aerys, even during his madness, and even after Robert Baratheon rebelled? Some may question my father for laying siege to the Baratheons' home, instead of marching to aid Prince Rhaegar before Robert could kill him and scatter the royal army. But let us not forget that we had already dealt Robert his only defeat of the war at Ashford. If Lord Tywin Lannister had not vanquished the Mad King so suddenly, our siege would have destroyed Robert's home and his brothers, and won the war for Aerys. But when the Targaryens fell, House Tyrell again chose peace and prosperity over war and devastation, and bent the knee to King Robert Baratheon,
A lot of bend the
first of
knees.
his name.
Yep.
We returned to Highgarden
Hopefully
to manage
down,
the
not up.
affairs of the Reach, as we had for thousands of years, and will for 1,000 more. Other great houses take lions and wolves for their sigils, and draw their power from the gold in their mountains or the cold of their winters. But mountains run dry.
Right.
Winter yields to spring,
Right.
and the
And
rose
spring
blooms
grows in
once
the spring.
more.
Yeah, spring grows roses. Yeah.
Right. So all you're saying is that
Yeah.
House Tyrell is persistent.
Yeah, and like trying to make House Tyrell sound a lot more badass.
Yeah. You're saying
Where
that
the
you
North has
spend a
its
lot of
honour
time in
and
the
the South
background,
its
kind of
chivalry,
watching things
the Iron
happen,
Islands
Right.
has its strength.
Until they
We
surrounded.
call ourselves the Iron
and
Army,
negotiating when you
and we
can
are
for yourself.
warriors
Yeah.
feared throughout the Seven Kingdoms.
Same as everybody.
Or so
Yeah.
we used to be. Unlike their mainland cousins, the first men of the Iron Islands never bowed
this
to
is
the
Theon
old
again.
gods.
Yeah.
Theirs was the drowned god, who made the Ironborn to reave and sack
Oh,
and
with
write
Yara?
their names
Yeah,
in
with Yara.
salt, steel, and song, that his
Yara.
enemy, the Storm God,
Yara,
could not
bitch.
wash away. We raised our kings from our own ranks,
Oh, is this
and
all
used
about the
beaten foes as
Drowned,
thralls
or-
to work our mines and farm our
This
land.
looks like. Oh, there we go.
Or as salt wives, if a woman was pretty enough. Such was the old way, and while we followed it, we held sway wherever the waves were heard. When Aegon came demanding fealty, King Harren the Black ruled as far east as the Trident.
Other kings like the Starks could kneel, but Harren was Ironborn, and the Ironborn must be beaten. In Harrenhal, he had the mightiest castle in Westeros, and the army to defend it.
But Aegon did not intend a siege. He mounted his dragon and roasted Harren and all his sons in their tower, and the Old Way with them. Because of Harren's defiance, Aegon pushed the Ironborn back to our islands and gave the Riverlands to the Tullys. But he did allow the Ironborn to choose who would lead them.
House Greyjoy had always been one of the greatest houses of the Iron Islands. We trace our descent from the Age of Heroes and the legendary Grey King, who took a mermaid to wife and made war upon the Storm God for 1,000 years.
Damn.
Blessed by the Drowned God, the Grey King fought
T-Pain.
and slew Naga,
I
the
fucked a
great
mermaid.
sea dragon, and took her fire for his own.
Yep.
This history made our ancestor Vicon Greyjoy the natural choice to lead the Ironborn after Aegon's conquest. For 300 years, House Greyjoy ruled the Ironborn. We styled ourselves Lord of the Iron Islands, King of Sultan Rock, Son of the Sea Wind, Lord Reaper of Pike.
In truth, we were thralls. Our people still chanted, "What is dead may never die." But the Old Way had died.
Until the Targaryens followed their dragons into the grave, and our Lord Father, Balon Greyjoy, rose against the new king, Robert Baratheon. He seized our ancient crown and sent our Iron Fleet against the Lannisters at Lannisport, burning all their ships before any could weigh anchor.
Though Robert and Eddard Stark would later defeat him, they understood us no better than Aegon. The Greyjoy sigil is the Kraken. What it grasped
Kraken.
once, it will never surrender.
What is dead may never die, but rises again, harder and stronger.
Totally surrendered.
What is it? It sounds similar to the Tyrells.
Yeah, it sounds
Rise
very similar.
Again, like the Rose. Sandor,
Asgard. Okay.
the
So
Hound.
the Iron Islands are just
Honor.
like Asgard.
Glory,
Yeah.
Yeah.
lies
But
to
more
make idiot
savage.
boys
Yeah.
and knighthood.
I was gonna say they
And
could be
idiot
really
girls
cool
spread
if
their
they were
legs
less
for it.
savage to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Let me
They're
tell
like
you
the
what makes a
Vikings of
knight.
this.
yeah.
Like,
Killing. Either enough men or the right man.
that's cool.
House Clegane should know. They're very good at both. Most families claim some great ancestor so far back that nobody can prove them liars. Not us. My grandfather kept the kennel for Lord Titus Lannister of Casterly Rock, the father of Lord Tywin. Lord Titus was a weak man who didn't know it.
Who
One
didn't
day
know
while
it?
hunting, he stumbled on a lioness. Instead of embracing the man who wore her on his banners, she tried to tear out his throat. Lucky my grandfather came up with the dogs and drove the big cat away. As a reward, the Cleganes got lands and a keep and a son to squire for the Lannisters. We took the 3 hounds who died for them as our new sigil.
Oh wow.
When Tywin Lannister became Lord of Casterly Rock, he wanted more from his former kennel master than fealty. He bet that training hounds to kill isn't far from training boys to kill. In just 2 generations, my brother Gregor and I proved him right. I gutted my first man at 12. Years after, servants started disappearing in our keep. And even a sister I don't remember.
Oh.
But nobody could prove anything against Gregor. Or dared if they caught him at it. For my father wanted a knight in our family,
What the
and
fuck?
thought he'd found one in Gregor, who at 13 towered over enough men that they called him the Mountain. Sure, Gregor looks quite the champion from a distance, but a mountain can't cleave a man in half with one blow, and won't break a wench's face if she talks. Through Lord Tywin's influence, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen kindly anointed my brother personally. A great honor for our family, everyone said. 1 year later, Sir Gregor chivalrously sacked the prince's city, brained the prince's baby, and raped and murdered the prince's wife, winning our family yet more honor from the new king and queen. Soon after, my father died. They say in a hunting accident.
Oh.
The same day that Gregor became lord of the Clegane lands, gold and anything under his roof, I left our home to take service at Casterly Rock. Lord Tywin is not like his father. Neither is King Joffrey. Or the likes of me would never be on the King's Guard, with all those true knights. Between them, a man who serves the Lannisters will never lack for killing. I'll guard this king, such as he is. Gregor will kill the other ones, such as he does. When we're done, we'll see how many people still believe in songs and fairy tales.
Damn. He's like the most Clegane there is because he's the Hound and their sigil is the Hound.
Yeah.
Like,
A long time ago, they say, some old southern king
Ygritte?
enslaved our giants by magic.
You know
And forced them
nothing.
to build your famous wall.
You know nothing?
Then he
Jon
kicked all of
Snow.
mankind to the other side and raised an army to keep us there. And we're the uncivilized ones. Wildlings. Might be Sir King was wise. Even a giant can be made to kneel. But only if he wants a better crack at your head. The free folk don't follow a man because his father
The free
tells
fuck.
us. If the king's son was brave and strong, aye, we'd follow him as we did his father. If he wasn't. But it seems to me, as much as the wall keeps us out, it keeps you southerners in. You follow laws you didn't make. Kneel to kings you didn't choose, and pray to gods you never hear from. Traders talk about your seven. Beyond the wall, the stars shine bright and clear. Many gods there aren't listening to the likes of
Oh,
men.
yeah.
that's right.
Our gods.
We didn't
are
have
the
any technical
forest,
difficulties at
in
all.
the trees
None at
that
all.
Shelter us and the rivers that feed us.
It hasn't been an
They
hour.
gave
not
a
at all.
land for
Mhm.
all of us to share. We
Has it actually?
fish, farm,
It's
been
and
about.
hunt where we will, when we need. If a man wants a woman, he has to prove he'll give her strong and cunning sons.
Right.
It's easy.
But not letting
When
him
she
slit his
tries to
throat.
slit his throat, he don't let her.
Yeah, we got
How
a
did
little
you
bit
know
pa-
that?
We got a
Where's the
little
free
bit
thought?
past this and our
You
shit
get
froze.
what you can take, and you keep what you can hold.
And you keep what you can.
No more.
No more.
I wonder.
Is that Mance right there?
Even if my
Might have
kind
been,
didn't
yeah.
hop over your wall,
That might be.
but he
Mance
still
right
set your
That's
night's
Willem
watch
Dafoe right
together.
there.
You southerners are rich. You always have more steel, gold, and
It's the ugliest
daughters.
motherfucker I've ever seen right there.
I think you're afraid.
She had Schmiegel's face
Oh.
in that
If you've always
comic.
knelt, you don't know what freedom is. And if you've not been beyond the wall, you don't know what fear is. You will.
Ooh.
What the fuck is that?
That is.
Is that a saber-toothed tiger or is that a dire wolf?
That would look like some kind of
Yeah, I
Creature?
felt like that was a direwolf.
maybe.
We get Ygritte
But
again.
with blue eyes.
Yeah, with blue eyes.
Yeah, you
Swords in the
A
darkness.
white wolf. Oh, ghost.
Something about the Night's Watch.
The Black Brothers of the Night's Watch are that, at least. As too many of the free folk know.
Free fuck.
You
She keeps saying
Southerners are
fuck.
strange.
Hey,
A man murders,
Motherfucker.
and you train him to kill better. A man thieves or rapes, and you send him where it's dark and private. Well, at least you make him promise to be good. Well, then you make him regret even that. From the time he's woken to the time he's allowed to sleep, he walks the frozen wall, carries frozen stones, or boils frozen food. When
Yeah,
he lies
sounds about
down
right.
at night, he can't have nobody to warm his frozen bed. Well, not unless the crows like to nest together. Do you think he remembers the stories they told him then? About when the White Walkers woke in the land of always winter, and how the wall and the Night's Watch were raised to stop them the next time.
you wouldn't sleep with a
Never
crow?
mind trapping us on the other side.
No, I don't think I
We
would.
free
You're
folk have our
desperate enough?
stories too.
Huh?
If you were desperate enough?
About how one
No.
of your king crows found something cold in the woods with bright blue eyes. ways.
Oh.
How he brought her home through your wall and declared himself Night's King. 13 years he and his queen ruled over his brothers, making sacrifices as black as their cloaks. Lucky for you Southerners, the Free Folk rallied to a king beyond the wall, as we will when need be, and marched on the ancient castle he'd taken for his own, the Night Fort. With the help of the Starks, we killed the demon and cleansed your precious watch.
With the help of the Starks.
And then they thanked us and kicked us back across the wall, as you always have. Gendel, Raymond Redbeard, the Horned Lord, each chosen as a king beyond the wall, each promising victory. And all falling to the Night's Watch and the Starks.
Yep.
But this time is different.
Isn't that the definition of insanity?
Our new king knows your tricks. You
Because
called
he was
him
one of
Brother
them.
Crow once, but you never forgot his wings. We know how you think. We know where you're weak. Watch for us from your wall if you like. With the cold, you won't even feel the blade slip into your back.
Ugh.
Piece of shit. Okay,
It's a lot of Stannis.
Yeah.
It's like his third one, I think.
Nobody knows why the Targaryens first came to the island of Dragonstone. Old Valyria was then at the height of its power and the center of the civilized world, which ended at the Narrow Sea.
We did a lot of
Westeros
Theon,
was a
too.
filthy backwater with 7 kings squabbling over borders and minor glories. So much for progress. The island itself was and is nothing. It had no gold or gems to lure Valyrian nobility. All it has is rock. Mostly a shiny black stone, too brittle for war and too sharp for building. The Targaryens called it dragon glass. I call it useless. But the Targaryens managed to raise a castle here. Simpletons claim they used ancient Valyrian sorcery, forgetting that the Targaryens brought a small army with them from Essos. There's no magic in strong backs, though admittedly the castle is unlike any in Westeros. Foreign and strange. If the Targaryens ever regretted their barren outpost and longed for the comforts of home, the Doom made their folly permanent. Valyria collapsed into the waves and was no more.
Oh,
to look
Valyria.
east was to see the ruin of their homeland, the greatest civilization before or since. But to look west, as Aegon realized, was to see a fertile land ripe for conquest. Perhaps even a new Valyria. Though good for little else, Dragonstone was the perfect staging point for Aegon's invasion of Westeros. The Blackwater Bay granted easy access to the continent. The lands
know where that
there were
is.
disputed by 3 kingdoms: the Reach, the Iron Islands, and the Stormlands. But their capitals were far enough away that none could mount a force before Aegon got a foothold, even if their kings had been able to stop bickering over whose problem he was. Then it was too late. Aegon had chosen his first camp well. With the bay to the east, the river to the south, and open fields to the north and west, his army would be impossible to take by surprise. A perfect site for an invasion, and one day, his capital city, King's Landing. The Doom had taught the Targaryens the prudence of refuge. After the conquest, Dragonstone became the seat of the crowned prince and heir to the Iron Throne. It would serve them well, and me ill, 300 years later after my brother Robert Baratheon rebelled against the Iron Throne and the Lannisters slaughtered the Mad King Aerys and his royal family. Robert dispatched me to deal with the last surviving Targaryen children. But before I arrived, a loyal knight smuggled them across the Narrow Sea to safety. Hatred for the Targaryens blinded Robert. Unjustly, I was blamed, and stripped of our family's castle of Storm's End, and given Dragonstone in its stead. Over the years, whenever I demanded my rights restored, Robert would remind me of the island's royal
That's kind of
pedigree
ironic. He was
and
supposed to
pretend
kill
he was doing me
Targaryens, but then
honour,
was given Targaryen
as if I
home.
were one of
Yeah.
his tavern girls to be so easily deceived and dismissed. But Robert is dead, and I, Stannis Baratheon, am the rightful king of Westeros. Let the usurpers and traitors sit on the Iron Throne. From Dragonstone, I will be the dagger at their throat.
See, that's why I want to see, like, because I do kind of like Stannis in some ways,
Yeah.
but I want to see Dany take back over Dragonstone with her dragon.
On the shores of the God's
Daddy!
Eye,
That's where they
due
belong,
north
right?
of the Isle of Faces,
Technically.
rises a monument to arrogance and cruelty. Harrenhal. For a people who prided themselves on their ships, the Iron Men of old seized any chance to leave them, and carved out a vast kingdom from the peaceful river lords. The Empire reached its zenith under King Harrenhal,
Zenith.
called the Black by those he terrorized, and by his own men, though they meant it proudly. King Harren enslaved the Riverlands to raise the mightiest fortress Westeros had ever seen. A castle that could garrison 1 million men, with walls so vast that winters would come and go, and besieging armies grow old and grey before the castle fell. 5 towers he ordered, reaching into the heavens like grasping fingers. A monstrosity which he forced our people to build for their own subjugation. But the very day the slaves laid the last stone, Aegon Targaryen and his sisters arrived in the south. When they arrived with their small army,
As soon as you
Harren
finish building
laughed
it.
and shut the gates. Harrenhal would have its first test, and an easy one at that. It failed. Harrenhal could have withstood an assault from all the armies in Westeros combined. But Harren learned that the tallest and thickest walls meant little to dragons, for dragons fly. With Harren and his sons dead, Harrenhal quickly surrendered to Aegon. House Tully then raised the River Lords in rebellion against the Iron Islands, and with Aegon we flushed the Iron Men to the sea. We should have torn down the castle stone by stone then, but Harrenhal seemed such a magnificent prize that Aegon gave it to one of his commanders, whose line then withered to extinction. As would every family to hold it thereafter.
Wow. Tywin held it, so...
It's
When many
cursed.
speak of Harrenhal, their voices drop to whispers about Mad Lady Lothson, who was said to send a giant bat to collect children for her crockpots, and to
Nice.
bathe in blood and serve feasts of human flesh.
Of
About the ghosts
vampires?
of Black Harren and his sons who still walk the castle at night, all aflame.
Are there
Of the
fucking
servants
vampires
who
in Game
went
of
to bed
Thrones?
in full health and were found in the morning, burnt to ash. Mere stories to frighten wayward children and excite young girls, you may say.
He
Burnt
said,
to ash
entirely
when
wrong.
the sun comes up,
and
huh?
his sons. Do you know
Harrenhal
what
is
that
a
is?
prize.
Huh?
A nigh impregnable castle with enough land and enough income to make a man, at a stroke, one of the greatest lords in Westeros. But you would not be entirely right either. Say by a king's grace, Harrenhal became yours. Now you must garrison it. You must repair it and maintain it. Even stretched to the ends of your means, you cannot fill and manage the whole castle. So you retreat your household to 4 of the 5 towers, then 3, then 2, then only the bottom thirds of those. You close the hall of 100 hearths and take your meals in your rooms. Even then you can't shake the feeling of desolation, that Harrenhal and its vastness is devouring you. In later years, as you bury a grandson or a great-grandson, the last of your line, you will know it has.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
So they're saying that the only reason why that castle is destroying people is because it's just too big.
Yeah.
What?
So they can't
At its
maintain it?
height, the
All those
Valyrian
stories
fleet
about how all the
ruled over
horrors that
half
were
the
inside of
known
Harrenhal,
world.
but like we saw what was
Not
going on
bad
in
for
there.
former
I mean, it
shepherds.
was horrible,
But the
like
doom fell
Oh,
on
yeah.
awful,
and sank
but
their capital into
nothing
the sea.
supernatural.
Yeah.
Now Volantis is the ember of old Valyria, ensuring its flame does not go out from this world. as any Volantine will tell you. Pentoshi say the same about Pentos, Lycines about Lys, and so on. But after enough time in the 9 free cities, it's hard to see them as anything but ashes of glory. Volantis is the oldest, the first colony of Valyria. After the Doom, the Volantines tried to rebuild the Empire under their rule. They failed. Not least because the last Valyrian with dragons, Aegon Targaryen, entered the war against them. Now they are content to dominate only their lower classes. Or so they say. Braavos is the strangest, a city erected not by the freehold, but against it. A labyrinth of illusion and deceit to hide the refugees from Valyria's slave lords. After the Doom, the city emerged from the shadows to become one of the greatest banking centers in the world. A man can get anything in Braavos, for a price. Especially death. Your own if you offend one of the swaggering swordsmen that pollute the city.
Swaggering.
Or if you're very rich, or very desperate, anyone else's.
Like Beric Dondarrion?
Lys is the
one of the swaggering swordsmen?
easiest of the free cities. Full of pleasure houses catering to every taste, no matter how peculiar. Many men lose themselves in Lys and are never found.
Titties.
At least alive. When a man runs out of coin, the Lycines may grant him their other speciality on the house. Poison.
Huh.
Pentos is the most ruthless.
Oh.
Magisters make a great show of choosing the Prince of Pentos from the great families and granting him the powers of trade, justice, and war, as long as he checks with them first. On the new year, to bring good fortune to Pentos, this prince must deflower the Maid of the Field and the Maid of the Seas. I confess I don't know how each is chosen, or what becomes of them after serving their purpose. But if a crop should fail or a war be lost, the Magisters will slit the prince's throat and choose another.
Wow.
Oh.
The other free cities are known for what they make. Mia has its lenses and finery, Norvos, its axes, Quohor, its smiths who can reforge Valyrian steel, Tyrosh, its colors. I'm sure Lorath had something to the world, but I can't think of
Oberyn.
Frankly, the 9 of them are more alike than they would care to admit. They hire the same soldiers to fight the same wars for the same rulers, the rich, be they called Magisters, Archons, or what have you. When a Dothraki Khalasar approaches, they gift the same tribute to avoid the same sacking. For thousands of years, the disgraced of Westeros have drained east to pool in the free cities, where a man of honor counts for less than nothing, unless it raises his price. Better men than I have learned that what a man sells for gold, he can never buy back. He must earn it, by fire and blood.
Zoro, Zoron,
What?
Doxos.
Karth has always and only belonged to the Karthine.
The
We were never
Karthine.
part of Valeria's empire, nor have we ever fallen to a Dothraki horde. Our walls and the red waste outside them guard us from such annoyance. Many call the approach to our city the Garden of Bones. It needs little tending to grow. Our city, however, would be quite a prize for any empire. Karth straddles 2 worlds, a greedy and curious west, and a rich and mysterious east. The marvels of Yeti and Ashai pass through our markets, and share berths with the riches of the free cities and Westeros. Our ports have fulfilled many a trader's dreams, almost as many as they have broken. We call Karth the greatest city that ever was or will be. An easy claim to make if one knows only the docks and customs houses of other cities. An easy lie to swallow if a people see only the gold and jewels of their rulers, which we, the 13 who govern the city, are careful to ensure. The proud Karthine shook off the yoke of unjust kings long ago, so they are told at festivals by the pureborn, the king's direct descendants who have controlled the 13 ever since. Only now, instead of scepters, they use ships. A merchant only remains on the 13 until the others are no longer afraid to deny him, or too afraid to deny his replacement. Except for the warlocks, they alone hold a hereditary seat, a relic from when they had powers, or at least from when the world was younger and more easily duped. Over the years, we have developed an understanding with them. They shall always be welcome on our councils and at affairs of state, provided they never come. Rare is the civic problem that can be solved by cryptic nonsense and shade of the evening. Thankfully, they need little encouragement to confine themselves to their House of the Undying.
House of the Undying.
Yet perhaps we Carthene are too confined ourselves. We feel safe behind our walls and our laws, which no visitor can hope to follow, and by which any citizen who vouches for a guest always pays with his life. But like a ship in the summer seas, a city grows becalmed without fresh wind. The greatest city that ever was or will be? An epitaph. I would prefer the greatest city that is.
He said anyone who basically sponsors someone to come in pays with their life. That's what happened to him.
Yeah. Damn.
Also,
I guess because he knew he was
going
to try to overthrow everyone.
And defeat.
Yeah.
Pretty chains
Yeah.
that the first men kindly put on after the Andals crushed them. Except in the Iron Islands. Since the Dawn Age, the Ironborn have followed the drowned god, who plucked fire from the sea and made us to reave and sack and carve our names in blood and song. When the Andals
and
landed on the
song.
Iron Islands, they found a god who was father, warrior, and stranger, who took mother, maiden, and crone when he would, and held the smith in thrall. His priests are the drowned men, who are clothed and armed by the sea itself. They consecrate us to the drowned god through our most sacred rite, the drowning, and ask the god to raise us from the sea as he was, harder and stronger. The Ironborn do not fear the bloodiest battles or the roughest waves, for the drowned god taught us long ago that what is dead may never die. When an Ironborn falls, we say the drowned god needed a strong oarsman and took him below to feast in the god's watery halls, attended by mermaids. But even in death, an Ironborn is a warrior. We fight against the storm god, who holds a castle in the clouds, and sends the winds to lure the Ironborn off course or wreck our ships. It's said my legendary ancestor, the Grey King, waged war upon the storm god for 1,000 years. With the drowned god's help, he slew the great sea dragon Naga and used her bones for his horn. After his death, the storm god tried to wash away any memory of this terrible foe, but his songs fill our halls to this day. It was the storm god who first blew the Andals to the Iron Islands, to subdue us and turn us from our faith. True, they conquered and killed our king, but in time they forsook their septs for the shore, and their fat septons for the drowned men. The Andals came to us as conquerors. In the end, they drowned. The Ironborn are of the sea, as our god made us, and given to it as our god taught us. We do not fear the storm god's winds or his waves, but you should, for they bring us to you.
Wow.
Yeah. That's pretty.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah.
The Alchemist Guild.
The Pyromancer. Wow.
Dragons conquered the seven.
Dragons.
We haven't seen him in a while.
The Targaryens.
Whenever he was showing
temperamental.
Tyrion all the wildfire that
When
was
the
down
great
there.
King Maegor saw the power of the Alchemist
power.
Guild, he blessed us with his patronage. In those days, we commonly transmuted metals and other wonders, but
Come
the king
to
was
die.
most interested in our mastery of the substance, which those not of our order dub wildfire. A slight
Wildfire.
misnomer. To the uninitiated, the
So they just call it the
indeed
substance.
seems uncontrollable. Water will not extinguish it, nor plate of steel repel
That's
it.
why they could light the bay on fire.
Our order alone knows its secrets. In bare stone cells beneath the guild hall, our acolytes prepare the substance with utmost care and ancient magic. Apprentices then remove the jars to a secure storage. Overseeing its purity are the wisdoms, such as myself,
Green
who are
phosphorus.
adept in the
Green
alchemical
phosphorus, brother.
mysteries. Should an acolyte prove unworthy and allow the substance to ignite, the ceilings are spelled to collapse and fill the room with sand. For once lit,
Wow.
only smothering or starvation will quench the fire. Many years did the Alchemist Guild serve the Targaryens faithfully, until we were beset on all sides by the envious, the Order of Maesters, who dismissed all learning but their own, and the charlatans who hawked green paint and worse in our names. After the unfortunate Prince Aerion Targaryen, drunk with wine, boasted that a draught of the substance would transmute him into a dragon, we lost our royal favor. Then came the wise King Aerys, second of his name. I was merely an acolyte when he restored our guild to its former glory. As had his great forefathers, he appreciated our secret arts, even naming Wisdom Rossart as Hand of the King. Together, they punished his enemies as befits a true Targaryen. During the War of the Usurper, I heard whispers.
That's what he was
that
talking about
King
when he said,
Aerys
"Burn them
had
all."
engaged our greatest wisdoms
Yep.
for an ultimate weapon against his foe.
And he loved
But
watching it.
sadly,
He loved watching it.
King's Landing must have fallen before it could be used, and many of our wisdoms disappeared in the sack of the city, victims of ignorance and envy, as ever, I'd wager. Yet our order perseveres, like the substance which grows ever more potent as it ages. We perfect our ancient arts in darkness, forgotten by the world. We are masters of the fire, but we live only to serve. All we need is the right spark.
Oh. So, can we pause there real quick?
Yeah.
When was the last true dragon?
The last dragon that ever
So-
lived?
No, like the Targaryen that was actually considered. Like,
Oh, before.
I guess Aegon.
was it Aegon?
Besides Daenerys.
Yeah.
So I wonder, like, because I wonder how wildfire would affect them. Because fire doesn't affect them.
Oh, someone who is a true dragon?
Yeah, because it affected her brother Viserys.
Yeah. So, I mean, it probably wouldn't hurt them, but I don't think they probably couldn't harness it like that and actually use it.
Right.
Like to breathe it or anything.
Like, technically, I guess you could douse Daenerys in wildfire, and she could like run through a bunch of houses and set a bunch of houses on fire.
Should be fine.
Because it's going to burn her nonstop somehow, I
Yeah.
get. Well, no, because it would starve after it burns her clothes off.
Oh, it would take all the oxygen from around her. She couldn't breathe. She would die, not from fire, but from.
Well, regular
No.
fire would do that.
Yeah, because she sat in that
Well, I know,
pyre.
but the regular fire wouldn't stay on her. The wildfire will stay on her.
No, but I mean, like when she was in that when she burnt with that witch overnight completely
She was sitting in
for
the
all those
middle
hours.
of that thing.
Yeah, and that didn't do it to her.
Okay, so yeah, she should have died then, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess she could just also steal the oxygen from the fire. I guess if she's
Sure.
Yeah, I guess that's one way they could just
That-
explain it away with that. I
Yeah,
guess.
that's the only way it could
Either
be.
way.
Yeah, because isn't it like? Don't they say that? Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if I heard that right. He said that he would turn into a dragon, like if he
thought he would.
Yeah.
If that was anywhere near him, he thought he would.
Well, if he drank it.
If he drank, see, that's what. So right before that, I was like, I wonder what would happen if they actually took that and like drank it or used like breathed in the fire or whatever the fuck.
Like, what would happen if you drank it and then found a way to light it while it was inside of you?
Yeah.
And then if you could, like, find a way to make yourself regurgitate it, that would then technically be like you breathing the fire because it's now lit and you are expelling it out.
Yeah.
But
because he seemed convinced that he would actually just turn into turn into a fucking dragon.
He
But
was just crazy.
yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, he just kind of. That ain't how that works. I think he thought that the dragons actually were Targaryens.
Yeah, maybe.
But not that they
Like
controlled
old ancient
dragons.
Targaryens that like knew the secrets or something.
Yeah, like they just transformed into them, like they were
Like,
shapeshifters.
Oh, that one drank a lot of wildfire. Like, that one's even green. Like,
So, all right,
cool.
The warlocks.
The E-F-G.
The East is plagued with mystics who claim many dread powers but prove only one. Separating the foolish from their purses. Not so with the renowned warlocks of Karth.
Yes.
They demand a much dearer coin in return
I love how
for
they have their
parlor
lips stained
tricks.
blue from the drink that they had.
Respect. Once, the warlocks truly were mighty, or so they would have us believe. I do not doubt they have many secrets. They are an old order, and one does not obtain a seat on the 13, the governing council of Karth, without making 12 of our most powerful citizens afraid to forbid it. Thankfully for Karth, the warlocks exert little influence in our politics. They rarely leave the confines of the House of the Undying, a pompous name, but, I admit, a strange and dark tower. It is said that none who enter ever leave. Of course, since there are no visible doors, I have to believe none ever enter either. We can only imagine what the warlocks do inside. I wager we do not have to imagine much.
Wait.
They read dusty scrolls.
They didn't
detailing
have their
lost
magic
glory.
until
They
the
sip
dragons
shade
were
of the
born. Then
evening,
how the
a
hell did they get
foul
inside their tower?
Well, it's not that they
brewed
didn't
from
have
the
it. The
nearby
magic was
trees
just like
until their lips turned
like it was like
the better to frighten children
reinvigorated,
and
I
the
guess,
ignorant.
like because they could still
Stewing in
do
their
certain
fantasies
things.
like an
Right.
old
Okay.
soldier who drinks
Also,
alone,
we
so
don't know
no
how
one may
long the
challenge
warlocks
their
have been there,
prowess.
right?
Whatever the warlocks
Yeah,
may
but if
wish,
they had their house didn't have
magic, like
doors,
all
I'm like, how did they
magic,
get in
is
if they
dead
didn't have
in
their
the
magic?
world,
That's what I'm saying.
if
Like,
it
did they
ever
get in
existed.
when the dragons?
Though,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
One does hear strange
It's
whispers
weird.
of late. Glass candles that have been cold for 100 years, now burning. Ghost grass, found far from the lands of the shadow. A Kalasar led by a woman with 3 heads. Traders' nonsense, most likely. But should the warlock's vaunted magic ever return, that would be a dangerous day for Karth.
Huh.
I shall
And
need
that
to
happened.
keep my eyes on them. Indeed.
See? He had no magic. So if they didn't have magic, how did they get inside their house with no doors?
So,
All right. Well, that was the season 2 lore.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of confused about that too. But I mean, overall, it doesn't seem pertinent to the story, but it's cool. But like,
Yeah.
I could totally go without watching these and still be fine. But I'm cool with watching them. I like them.
Well, my thing is for most of this one, I don't know. There's been a lot that's been kind of interesting to me. Like,
For season 2, that one was much
Yeah.
more. Like season 1, I was like, this kind of didn't do anything really.
it got
Yeah.
more interesting near the end. This
Yeah.
majority of this one, I've been really interested in.
Yeah, I found myself like paying attention to the whole one. This one, the first one, it was hard to really
Yeah.
like follow.
This one, I'm loving to see like how everyone really sees these certain
Events,
Yes.
for their perspective, it's cool to
Yeah.
get some perspective on
because
it.
then the next time we see them, we kind of get a better understanding of their place in this world. and
Unless they're dead.
how they fit. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's plenty of stuff on here that you would never know if you didn't watch this and you only
Yeah.
watch this show.
The
Like-
explanation of the drowning god.
Yeah. And like Kat, like I thought they were together and then there was a war.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew she only got with Ned because Brandon died.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize it was Brandon death, immediate engagement and marriage to Ned, and then one night sleeping together. The next day he leaves. Like
Yeah.
I did you would never know that.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So John and Rob are,
Pretty close in age.
yeah, I was about to say they're
Pretty damn close in age.
probably like maybe months apart.
Yeah.
Like any point after he left, that could have happened.
Yeah.
So, dang. Man, I want to see John, like, just pop off, dog. I really like John. He has been my favorite for a while of the Starks now.
John is cool.
And then Bran, obviously, because we share a name.
Well, John of the Snows.
Well, yeah. Nah, man, he's a Stark.
Yeah, I know.
I'll tell you who's not a fucking Stark.
John, because he's snow.
They say Theon.
Theon Greyjoy. Well, Reek.
Yeah.
Once Theon died, man.
Reek.
Well, man, my thing, I just hate it because it looked at, like, in season 1, at times, Theon looked like he was really wanting to be.
Oh, yeah.
And he even says to Robb at one point, like, you're my brother.
Yeah.
And in season 2 a little bit.
Yeah. And then he...
Well, even after he, you know, did that to the Starks, he already regretted it.
When Ramsay was walking him back through the tunnels towards the dungeon, and he had no idea he was going into the dungeon.
Yeah.
He was like breaking down about like my only like actual brother and my dad and like
my real dad lost his head in King's Landing.
Yeah. Like, damn.
I love that.
Yeah.
Like, and it just sucks as it's like, Theon, if you could have just realized, if when you first went to the Iron Island and you saw the way your dad treated you, if you'd just left then.
Yeah, dude. But no, he had daddy issues.
Yeah.
He knew he would never be anything more than a brother that was kind of a squire to the Starks.
But like your life was gonna be nice.
Yeah.
He wasn't treated like...
No, he wasn't treated bad. But
So-
but he wouldn't be like a king, or he couldn't be like.
But
I mean, he could have been fucking like commanding Rob's army.
Yeah, you'd have been like probably royalty. You'd have been
Yes.
and then you would have still had such a like.
He probably would have had a seat on the council.
Yeah, dude, you.
Because Rob was king of the North.
You wouldn't have
Who would have
needed
been his
to
hand?
have been actual king or anything. Just where you would have been. Theon loves his penis, and multiple
would have had
women would have loved it as well in his position where he
And
was.
he would have
like,
been in King. Yeah, he would have been in King's Landing where he could use it as much as he wanted to.
He would have did with the notoriety that he had with the
King's Landing.
Well, because they have like one of the most prominent brothels of like in all of the world, right? In this universe.
With Littlefinger's.
I mean, I guess.
brothel.
but-
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing.
He's
it's
got the
like,
best ones, right?
with his notoriety of being whatever, he'd show up and Littlefinger would be like, "Oh, for free, like have this," and he'd be like, "Okay." Theon just really screwed the pooch here. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Well, he's not going to do much screwing anything.
No.
From here on out. And that's sad,
that's
man.
just evil.
Yeah.
Man, to see how Ramsay went and made a three-course meal. What? What am I talking about?
He had a sausage.
Yeah. Why did I say a three-course meal? That didn't even make any sense. My brain wasn't working there, man.
He
I need some
said-
caffeine.
He said, "Oh, don't worry. So this isn't yours. I'm not a savage." You know?
Yeah.
No, God.
Made a whole...
Yeah.
Imagine
Smack.
if they had done that in that scene. If
It'd be insane.
If he'd actually just been like cutting up Theon's junk.
Yeah, it went from
Just-
Ramsay Bolton to Gordon Ramsay, bro.
Dude. Gordon Ramsay Bolton.
Yeah.
That's just. He said medium rare, yeah?
It's raw. Yeah. See, I do like a lot of the information that I get from these.
Yeah.
I do wish they were shorter, though.
Yeah.
I do. Like, it's cool that they have the actors, saying all this.
character,
Actually,
like-
I like it. It's a really cool concept.
Yeah.
But fuck, is it long?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's like. I just like at the end there, finding out the difference between the wisdoms versus the maesters and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
And the wisdoms are like the alchemists and stuff, and maesters are like, we're gonna read about this to find the more natural, I guess, like form to do this shit. And they're like, let's do chemistry and shit.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool to figure out the difference because
alchemists they practice chemistry and maesters practice like, well, I mean a load of different things.
Yeah.
Magic only if they have the Valerian link, right?
Something like that. And they would, yeah, because it's all the different links that they have, which is all, like they have to be like, they have to go to like the Maester Citadel to get that right, like from like the main Maester or whatever.
I'm Maester Johnson.
'Cause you have to
This
be
is
like-
my favorite shop at the Citadel.
That's my favorite store. My favorite. What would they call them at this point in time?
Yeah,
They wouldn't call them stores,
probably
right?
just be a shop.
Shop, yeah.
Ye old shop. Kisses on the mouth.
Well,
Touches on the
And the
shoulders.
forehead.
Yeah, forehead kisses.
yeah, eat an apple pie off my.
What?
Yeah.
Subscribe button.
Yeah.
After you pressed it.
I like
And after you hit the. notification bell.
Bring back the thing with the dinghies.
He said, get back the jingle jingle.
Man, if I can find my keys.
No one knows how to do the plinky noise.
Oh, we need Steven.
We need Tony.
Oh, Tony.
We need
You always say Steven.
Probably goes, Steven! Oh, wait. No, what?
You thinking of
Alan.
No, I think
Steve!
it's the Frisbee.
That's the, what the fuck, Richard?
Oh, fuck. I don't know. I don't know where I got Steven.
to you, dog.
I don't know where I got Steven.
Wasn't Steven an old friend of yours?
Steven, where you at?